welcome to Katie in the Morning. Today is Thursday, March 15th. We are over the hump of Wednesday and headed into the weekend, and we have some fun things. Did you hear that? Did you guys feel that? Today we're talking all about ghosts. If you have worked in long-term care for at least a year, or maybe some of you preceptors may have even tried to scare your orientees with ghost stories from your facility. If you worked in there for over a year, you've probably experienced something yourself. They say that every nursing home is haunted, whether it's a brand new one. You'll oftentimes hear the joke, if a resident passes away, well, great, now this place is haunted. This is all brought on because I received a question for letters to Katie from Allison in the CNA's World group. And Allison said, I know this sounds crazy, but I just have to share. A patient passed away a few days ago. They cleaned out her room and set it up for a new patient. The room was empty, and I'll be darned if that call light did not go off with nobody in there. I went in there, turned it off, and for the rest of the day had this creepy feeling like someone was right behind me. Yikes. When I got home, I prayed because it scared the heck out of me. Has anything like this ever happened to you? Well, I did a little research there, Allison, and I did find, you guys have probably seen him in CNA's World. He goes by King Franco, and I pulled a video for you guys to see about what King Franco said about this topic.
What's that you said? You thought you heard the voice of Mrs. Williams. You know Mrs. Williams died like 2 weeks ago. Well, you probably did hear Mrs. Williams. You know this place is like seriously haunted. And Mrs. Williams' spirit probably hang around for a couple of weeks. Then it'll move on. What? What do you... No, I'm not being crazy. You don't really... You think nursing homes aren't haunted? Nursing homes, hospitals, or you really think those aren't... Do you really think those aren't haunted? Here, let me give you some examples. Switch the scene to gray. Add some haunted music. Have you ever walked by a room and heard a toilet flush and that room is empty? Nobody's in there? Have you ever heard either a cry or a laugh come from an empty room where a resident died a few days ago? Have you ever seen random lights come on by themselves, or had the lights in the hallway flicker for no apparent reason at very strange times? The fact that you work in the medical industry, you have to believe, especially in buildings that's been up for 30, 40 years, that some of these spirits that had nowhere to go probably are still here, watching over us. Some of them are probably still in empty beds, trying to hit the call light and ask for water. Whew.
So there you have it. There's King Franco. I'm here with my little scareaway bear that I cling to when I get scared. When we come back from this break, I'll share a few of my personal experiences in the long-term care setting.
To CNA TV every Friday at 3 p.m. Central Time for long-term care news with Dane Henning.
And we are back. And Allison, you are in for some whopping good answers. If you guys don't have anything to do on Fridays at 3 o'clock, make sure you check out Long-Term Care News with Dane Henning. There's a lot of news that goes through directly related to our profession and our field. So if you're not doing anything on 3 o'clock on Fridays Central Time, make sure you check that out. Now back to our question. Allison asked if I have ever experienced anything supernatural in my career. And like I said, anybody who's worked in long-term care for 3 to 5 years has probably experienced something, whether it's our imagination wanting that experience, or a power surge, or an open window that we took out of hand. Whether you believe or you don't believe, 9 out of 10 says you've probably had some sort of experience. My very first one, I was working the overnight shift in my hometown. I was 17, 18, somewhere along those lines. And we had this lady named Lucille who lived on the South Hall. She had passed away a couple days earlier, and my partner Sarah and I were working the hallway. And the thing about Lucille is she never, ever pushed her hallway. She always yelled, "Girls, girls, girls," when she needed something. So we're sitting down there. Back then we did the paper charting still. So we were doing our charting in between rounds, and I kind of perked my head up, and I said, "Sarah, did you hear that?" And she says, "Yeah." She said, "Somebody's yelling for help." She says, "I'll go check." And I just kept on my charting, and a few minutes later, Sarah came back in the hallway, and she said, I got all the way to the end of the hallway, and it stopped. She's like, "I can't figure out which room it's in." I said, "So let me go check." And I stood up, and I heard it, "Girls, girls, girls." So I walked all the way down the hallway, and every room that I passed, I heard it in a different room. So when I got to the end of the hallway, I heard it on the opposite end. So I walked back down, and Sarah was sitting there doing her charting for the people that she had checked and changed and repositioned. And I said, "It's really weird." I said, "Every room that I go to, and it's not that person that's yelling." So she said, "Get up. I'll start at one end, you start at the other, and we'll kind of filter them out and find out which room it is." So Sarah started at the end of the hallway, and I started at this one, and we went room to room, and we passed each other. And we went all the way to the end, and every room that we passed, each one of us heard it in a different room, and it was the constant, "Girls, girls, girls, girls." And finally Sarah stopped, and she says, "You know what? I know what this is." And she kind of put her hands up, and she said, "Lucille, we're here. It's okay. Everything's fine." And the rest of the night, we did not hear it again. It was just the most phenomenal thing, whether it was somebody playing a practical joke on us. I don't know how they would have done that, but the two aides that were working what we call up the hill are notorious for doing pranks, so I don't know if it was something like that. And I must tell you, that was my aunt and my mother that worked up the hill and were notorious for pulling pranks on people. And on that note, my mom was also the person that trained me as a CNA when I was 15, 16 years old. And she used to tell me this story. And like I said, if you've been in the field for more than a year, if you haven't experienced it yourself, you've probably had somebody tell you a story of something that happened. You guys have probably all seen that movie 1408 about the hotel that doesn't have the 13th floor in the hotel, and they didn't have a room 13. But the funny thing is, a lot of hospitals, long-term care facilities, assisted livings do not have a room 13 or an apartment 13. If you pay attention, next time you guys are in a facility, check that out. Usually the room 13 is either like a storage or medical charting or something along those lines. It's actually kind of entertaining to see if you can even find a room 13, whether it's a hotel, hospital, assisted living, skilled nursing, anything. Back to my story. So my mom used to tell me this story in the first few nights that I was training about a man that wore overalls. Everywhere he went, he wore overalls. At that time, she worked on the skilled or the Medicare or Medicaid hallway. That's where people came in for short-term rehab and then went back home. And she was telling me, now don't get scared because I forget what they called him, what his name was, but he wanders these hallways at night, and I'm thinking it's a resident that gets up, dementia, that sort of thing, wanders room to room. And she's telling me these stories about these people that would put their call lights on, and she'd go in, and they'd tell her there was just a man standing at the end of my bed wearing blue coveralls or overalls and a striped shirt. And she'd tell them, "You must have been dreaming. Do you need a drink of water?" That sort of thing. "Go back to bed. We're here. It's fine." She'd go out, and a few minutes later, a call light would go off in another room. So she'd go, maybe they had to go to the bathroom or need to reposition, and they'd tell her the same thing. A man was just in here standing at the end of my bed in coveralls and a striped shirt. And this happened throughout the night. And she's telling me this story. I never got to experience the man in coveralls, and I don't know whether she was pulling my chain or whether it really happened. But I'm sure you guys have all had your experiences, both in long-term care facilities and outside. I do have one more experience to share with you guys. I was not in a nursing home when this happened. I was actually on my way to Los Angeles, California on vacation with one of my friends, and we left from Brainerd, Minnesota, and drove straight through to Los Angeles. And about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, I remember coming down a mountain. I was half asleep and Megan was driving, but we were all hyped up on sugar, trying to stay awake to make the whole drive without having to stop. But when we hit that point, it was just too late and we were too tired, so she decided to pull over at this little hotel in Albuquerque, New Mexico. When we got there, the window was cracked open and it was like a rinky-dink rundown hotel. Like we had paid like $54 to stay there for the night. But I remember it was so incredibly hot in Albuquerque in February, which was strange to a girl from northern Iowa and Minnesota. But so we came in, shut the window, turned the air on, both took showers and laid down. And about that time, Megan said, "Katie, don't move." And she leaned over and she went like this over me. And I was like, what's going on? You know, I didn't think much about it, and kind of both rolled over, forgot about it, went to sleep. And about a half hour later, Megan's like, "Geez, it's really, really cold in here." I said, "Well, I'll turn the air conditioner off." So I got up and walked around the edge of the bed. And when I got to the foot of the bed, I went ice cold for like 3 seconds when I was walking through. Shut the air conditioner off, went back to bed. And in the morning, when Megan went to get up on her side of the bed, she pulled out the drawer. And mind you guys, this hotel did not have a phone. It didn't have the Bible in the drawer, the directory, anything that you'd normally see in a hotel was not there when we got there. And when Megan opened up the drawer the next morning to get her watch and the keys out of the drawer, there was a Bible in there that was open up, and on the inside cover, written in red, was David's Bible. And then later, I asked Megan what had happened the night before, what was going on, and she said that when she opened her eyes, there was like this cloud floating above me of what she thought looked like an Indian woman, like a priestess or something, and she was just waving her arms. And then later that day, she told me she didn't want to freak me out, but in the middle of the night, she rolled over, and there was this big black thing, shadow just hunched over on her side of the bed. It still gives me goosebumps just talking about it, but we did a little research. My aunt is very into like the Native culture and that sort of thing, and so her take on that, and I'm not saying you have to believe this or you don't have to believe it, or if you believe in supernatural or if you don't, but she said her theory on this is that hotel was built on an Indian burial ground, sort of a spiritual land, and the lady that was above me or waving her arms was a priestess and was protecting us from whatever that black thing was that was in the room. So, I mean, there goes the goosebumps again. So you can believe or you cannot believe. It's completely up to you. But you are going to hear stories working in long-term care, and you may even experience some things yourself. I just thought we'd have a little fun today and kind of cover that topic. And we'll be right back here tomorrow at 10 a.m. for Katie in the Morning.